All rise and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if everyone could just remain standing for 1 second, as everyone, I'm sure knows, today is the 24th anniversary of 9/11. If we could just do one, little moment of silence for all those who were affected by that 24 years ago. Thank you. Thank you very much. Everyone, welcome to the first meeting of the academic year. Thank you all those attending in person and those YouTubing in. Just a few quick items before we get to the official agenda. Need some reminders. Looking at the calendar, you will now see that we have 2 meetings per month. We used to have 1 meeting and 1 work session. We have simply changed the name and to some extent what we do during those meetings. Just so people know when they'd like to come, typically we will address student and PTA updates, prior meeting minutes, and most board schedules at our second meeting every month. The first will be more informational and focus on projects and presentations. But there could be important business and decisions in either meeting, so I encourage you to review the agenda when it is released, typically the Friday before a meeting. This Monday, the 15th, is district-wide welcome and school information night in the big auditorium at 7 p.m. Is there someone who would like to take 2 seconds to describe what people can look forward to?
Sure. We have an opportunity for new parents who are in our district to come and hear me speak and Mr. Manuel and everyone else to learn about our district, what the opportunities are. There's a club fair prior to or an activity fair, I should say, prior to the speeches. Then they will break off and go into the certain classrooms and hear from the principals where their children go to school. So it's a great opportunity as a new parent to get to learn all of the things about the Jericho schools.
Thank you very much. We want to remind everyone that next weekend, not this weekend, next weekend is Jericho Homecoming. There are events on Friday from 2 to 8, Saturday from 11 to 5. There'll be the traditional homecoming carnival, numerous sports games including football, soccer, tennis, badminton, and the annual Joe Farrell Memorial Swim Meet at 10:30 on Saturday morning. Of course, there'll be plenty of food and merchandise for sale. We hope everyone in our community, including all these eager new teachers, will join us at some point. Come out and support our district's athletes, get some delicious food, some creative swag, and have an incredible time. Last reminder, Tuesday, September 23rd and Wednesday, September 24th, we shall be closed. Do not send your children here. Do not have them waiting out by the bus stop. Teachers, stay home, enjoy your day off. With that, I turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Kravitz.
Well, we'd like to recognize our new teachers. Congratulations. And as I call your name, I'd like to recognize you guys. Can you stand up? And at the end, we'll give a big round of applause. And I think we all have something in common. This is your first year and my first year. So we're all counting. I'm counting the days, so it's 73 for me. So it's about 11 for all of you. So that's actually a little bit more than that. So this is a great opportunity to welcome the new staff members into the Jericho family. So without further ado, if you're not here, then don't stand up. Red Kornblum, Mike Larkin, Maggie Rose Melito. Stand up, stand up. Jim Madonis, Jana Ostroff, Maria Kutil, Stephanie Emanuel, Ariana Ewald, Dana Jensen, Jesse Natali, Simran Ramya, Alyssa Rubato, Gail Calabretta, Michael Comiskey, Denise DiStefano, Angelica Downs, Grace Luella, Liam Kretschmer, Jenna Libertelli, Laura Simon, Brittany Wheeler, Greg Boyle, Bolivar Bueno, Jacob Geiser, Anna Hicks, Bianca Merston, Lisa Quispe, Samantha Tortoriello, James Wedgie, Louis Cooper, Andrew Fentner, Molly Newman, Nikki Q, James Rustino, Antonia Almaya, Ava Kukuza, Elizabeth Foster, Joseph Seinfeld, Joseph Bonilla, Giuseppe Opus Diciano, Nicole Milanta, Victoria Torchia, Nafisa Yassin. Congratulations, everybody. I might have won Elaine DePaolo. Nope, it's the only one. Congratulations to everyone and welcome to the Jericho family. I believe all of you had the cake. So we were in our executive session, we missed the cake. Was it good? All right, great. Was it enough? Okay. So you can sit down now. Thank you very much. Oh, we do have one left? And Grace Keller. Sorry, this Grace. Grace, stand up one more time. You get this special. Okay.
Well, we're going to hand it right back to you, sir, for our superintendent's report. Please educate and enlighten us.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for all joining us tonight. I'd like to take a moment to again welcome everyone. As I read their names, just to let you know, after the superintendent's report, you're welcome to leave. There's no hard feelings. I recently attended my first back-to-school night in Jericho at the middle school, and I would like to commend Mr. Gleason, Ms. Bolette, and their staff for organizing such a wonderful evening. I look forward to all of the other back-to-school nights. Additionally, a big thank you to all of the staff, the administration, for ensuring a smooth start to this year with very, very few incidents, so I'm very happy for that. At this point, as I said, if you guys want to leave, you're fine, but I would like to hand over my report to Mr. Manuel, who will share a few words and introduce tonight's speaker. So if you want to stay and learn about
This is
buses.
about zero-emission buses, so I will tell you, get out while you can.
Very excited.
Don't worry about time.
You all set?
Gentleman in the white shirt, a teacher?
No, he's the presenter.
Oh, sorry. No teacher was.
Okay, so just to give you a little background on the presentation that's coming up. About 2 years ago, the state passed a new law / regulations for all school districts across the state that they would be required to have zero-emission buses beginning with the year 2027. Any replacement bus that you're purchasing must be zero emission, and by 2035, your entire fleet must be zero emission. That includes your fleet and the contractor's fleet. We briefly spoke a couple of months ago about the contractor side of it. We're getting 10 electric buses in the spring of 2026. But what we did was, because the state wants to know how the districts are progressing, we were able to get a grant through NYSERDA, which paid for 75% of the cost of this particular study. We hired Wendell Companies to provide a study, and you're going to see in a few moments how detailed it is. I'd like to say that there are no recommendations at the end of this report. This is just informational for now. We're still waiting and seeing if there's going to be any changes to the law over the next 1 to 2 years, because as you will see, there are pretty significant costs, not only on our end, but the state's end, and still a lot of outstanding questions. But with that said, we did go through the process of doing a report. We wanted to present it to the board and to the community. So I'm going to invite Andy Compton up to provide the presentation from Wendell Companies. Thank you, Mr. Manuel.
Adam, but for some reason, everyone says it as Andy. We're not alone. I appreciate the time. No problem. It's Adam. Adam Cup. So, again, to Mr. Manuel's point, we went forward and performed a study for Jericho School District on what it would look like if they transitioned to using electric school buses. Again, as he brought up, the study was funded 75% by NYSERDA. So a little bit about what we'll be talking about today is who is Wendell, what the mandate is from New York State. Like you referenced, there's two key dates, 2027 and 2035. The scope of work of the study, what we were hired to do, and a little bit of defining the details about the analysis and the findings and essentially the impact on the site, the impact on the utility, and the phasing and cost. So again, that's me. I have much longer hair, but I'm Adam Kaufman. I'm an engineer in training, and I'm a project manager for Wendell. So who is Wendell? Wendell is an architecture and engineering firm. We have 4 core practice areas: it's construction, it's architecture, it's engineering design, and it's energy efficiency. We are a company of about 300 plus, we're about 400 now. We have 16 offices nationwide, and we do work in all the areas that are shaded gray. So we do work in most of the states, and obviously a strong focus in New York, as you'll see on the next slide. And our local office is in Hop Hop, so that's where I work out. So the zero emission bus mandate, again, as Mr. Manuel brought up, the state is mandating that all new school bus purchases are zero emission. Zero emission really leads to 2 options. You have electric buses, you've got hydrogen buses. Hydrogen buses are not really commercially available, so you're really looking at electric buses to meet that mandate. And that's new school bus purchases by 2027 are to be zero emission. And the other main date is by 2035, they want the entire fleet, the contracted fleets and the owned and operated fleets by the school district to be zero emission. New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, or NYSERDA, is tasked by the state to provide the technical assistance to the school districts to navigate the transition to 100% electric school buses. So they are the authority who is helping to make this transition. They are providing technical support, and they are providing a lot of grant funding to help support this transition. So what did we do? We broke it down. Basically, we call it a fleet electrification plan, a battery electric bus transition plan, and it's really broken down into 8 tasks. Again, we start with a kickoff meeting, we introduce the team, we go over the timeline, we go over the tasks in a bit more detail, and we let the school district what we're going to know, what we're going to need from them. Again, it's try to be as hands-on on asking for stuff from the school district, but the biggest lift is essentially in task 2, where we need data. We need all the route data, we need all the fleet data, we need site design drawings, and an understanding of the existing transportation site that you use. Into task 3, it's a route analysis. It goes over each of the routes. Is it feasible to use an electric bus? Can a battery, take the meet the range requirements that you have to transport students to and from their houses back to school and extracurriculars, etc. Then we go into task 4, which is a charging strategy. It talks about not just an individual route, but the fleet as a whole. How much charge is going to be needed to charge the entirety of your electric bus fleet, and does PSEG have the power to provide that for you? Task 5 is about the utility, so we're working closely with the utility. We submit load letters, we submit site visit request forms, which actually has the utility on site, looking at the local electrical infrastructure and what it would take for them to upgrade and the associated cost. Task 6 is about actually putting schematic plans together on your site about what those phases would look like to make that transition, and putting cost estimates to those concept plans in task 7. And again, we summarize everything in a very lengthy report. It's 200 plus pages, 60 pages of core content that Mr. Manuel gets to go through. And so that is the tasks, and that is what's included in the scope of work that we performed for Jericho School District. So, route analysis, conceptual charging. So again, we're looking at how much power, what are the size of the batteries that we're going to need to transport students to and from their houses and back to school. What is the, are there limits to these buses or batteries? Where would it not be feasible to make this transition? What is the charge required in between the morning routes, the afternoon routes. You know, a bus goes out, it comes back, how much does it need to charge to be able to perform that afternoon route, to be able to perform the extracurricular activities. So the route analysis is a very technical, analysis-focused part of the study. Again, could bore some people here, but this is technical parts about it. It basically says, hey, we take really conservative estimates when we say a bus can drive this route. We're looking at cold weather conditions. We're looking at safety factors of 10%. We're looking at battery degradation of about 10%. We're looking at a lower limit of 10% and a higher limit of 10%. So when we say a bus is able to perform this route, we are confidently saying that. Again, more trends about performance at different outside intersections. That is at 11%. Essentially, that means, hey, if your route is 100 miles, we're going to make it 111 miles to make sure. It's, again, building in confidence in the results. So here's a results-focused slide. We have 20 buses. 16 of the buses are route buses. 4 of the buses are spares. Based on our evaluation, there's only one route, one bus that drives a couple of routes that would not be able to be met with the transition to electric buses. So one of 16 is listed as not feasible for us right now. That doesn't mean it will never be feasible. It means we don't have the confidence that it's feasible today. Range, it's really focused on battery size, battery capacity, range limitations during cold weather conditions. Again, that bus would work 95% of the time, but when we look at it, we want to look at it at 0 degree weather. So again, a couple of findings. It's a mix of a Type A, that's a small bus, a Type C, which is the larger bus with the nose on it, and a Type D, which is the larger bus with no nose on it. And so we broke down what a battery electric bus replacement product would be, with a focus on Thomasville buses. And the Bluebird buses are the longest, the largest battery for a Type A. So it was required for 6 of the Type A's to have the largest available Type A bus battery. And so it's a mix of Thomasville and Bluebirds that were selected for the proposed battery electric fleet. And again, that one Type A bus that is not currently available based on range limitations. 16 buses, 4 spares, 20 total. We also summarize the charging infrastructure, so it's broken down between 3 charger sizes. They're all considered DC fast chargers. Many of you may have electric vehicles. Those use level 1, level 2 smaller chargers. These are larger, and they're able to charge at higher rates, and they require more power. And really what dictates these charger sizes is the amount of charge that's required between the morning and the afternoon. If the bus has to charge really fast in a short amount of time, you need a large charger. That's the idea. That's what drives that decision. So again, summarizing results, there's 16 chargers that are proposed for the route buses, only one that required anything greater than a 24 kilowatt charger. So one that really had a stressful amount of time between its morning and afternoon routes that required a larger charger. And for the spare buses, we proposed 2 24s, that's a standard, the smallest charger for a spare bus, and one 120 kilowatt charger, which can charge 2 buses at once. It gives you a little bit of variability, optionality when you say, if I needed to charge one bus in an emergency extremely fast, I could plug it into a 120 kilowatt charger, or if I needed to use it for 2 buses at the same time, that would also be happening. So that's what's proposed for the spares. And that gives you a total of 19 chargers with 20 charging positions. Charge 20 buses, but there's only 19 physical chargers there. One of them is normal. 24, cost differential, I don't remember exactly, but it's about $11,000. Twice as fast. Has the ability to go up to twice as fast, and obviously can also charge 24 kilowatts if that's what you need at that moment, but it can charge up to 60. So again, so that was the route analysis. That's looking at individual routes, individual buses. Then we look at the entire fleet as a whole. So for our charging model, we looked at so there's 2 things here. One, on the right side, shows the actual energy values that we expect when charging a full fleet. The top value is 206 kilowatts. That is without what we're calling charge management, so smart charging, charging at the right time, at the right speeds, for the right purpose. Not just plugging in your car and goes to 100%, you're charging at the level that that bus needs. And really it highlights the difference between utilizing charge management system, which is technology to charge optimally, and versus just plugging in your bus would be 206 kilowatts and 124 kilowatts. So that is basically saying, if you avoid charging during those peak times and charge more at night at a lower, slow rate, you can reduce your peak demand by about 30–40%. And what you can see there is the blue line, which has the larger peak above 200. That's business as usual, right? That's without the smart charging technology. And then you can see the impact of charging at the right time lowers your peak, but raises the off-peak times of charge, right? Overnight, you're going to charge at higher levels to avoid the higher costs, to avoid the larger requirements from the utility. PSEG doesn't need to provide as large a transformer, as large a service, if you do things themselves. Okay, and as we get into PSEG, so again, we looked at their hosting capacity maps. They are GIS informational systems which show the available capacity at any location throughout Long Island or the territory they serve. And if you look at it, it's hard to see, but there's an EV load capacity number on the left image. It says 2.75 megawatts. Essentially saying that you have no power limitation. They have a lot of power that they can provide here in terms of the availability on the distribution system to this site. So that is not the hurdle that this district needs to overcome. And you can see there's a difference between the fully connected load, which is if every charger was at 100% versus what we project the chargers to be at based on those charging characteristics that we described in the previous slide of 185. Highlighting either way, the utility has the power to provide it to this site or to the transportation center. Just the site. Okay, so now we get into the actual concept plans. So we had engineers on site, they walked the facility, we had mechanical, electrical, and architects on site understanding it and then putting together concept plans of how this would look, what that transition could be in phases. It was broken down into 3 phases. Phase 1 focuses on 6 chargers and focuses on 6 buses. The cost there is for the charging infrastructure alone. At the end, I have an economics model which summarizes everything together. This is a fire protection plan, essentially, as for electric buses. We put together a concept plan that highlights fire protection because electric buses obviously can catch fire, essentially, same as a normal bus could, but we want to take precautions to make sure that your facility and site is set up in a safe manner. And so this is the fire protection plan that was put together as part of the plan, and the cost is about $1.5 million. Phase 2 brings another 5 chargers on site and brings the total to about 11 chargers, which could serve 12 buses. And again, the costs start to get lower. In phase 1 is where you put the majority of the electrical infrastructure into the project. You're putting large transformers, you're putting switchgear, you're putting a lot of infrastructure that will then be used as you add on to it, which is why the cost is a bit higher in the first one. The second phase is about $545,000. And phase 3 brings out another 8 chargers and costs about $1 million, and you can see how it's laid out on the site. Highlight some of the incentives that they have. So they are NYSERDA, the New York School Bus Incentive Program, has vouchers for school bus purchases. They have vouchers for chargers. On the screen is the voucher for the bus product. That voucher actually never even needs to roll through the school district. When you reach out to your bus vendor, that voucher is provided directly to them, and they take that cost off the price that the school district pays. Right now, for type A's, it's $114,000 base voucher. The priority district, which does not apply to Jericho, the scrappage bonus, which is $47,500, and that's for a type A, and so on for a type C, and so on for a type D. For type Cs, you're over $200,000 voucher money. Through the NYSERDA, New York School Bus Incentive Program. Next slide is for the chargers. So just to highlight the value of this study alone is you get an extra $30,000 on a charger voucher just for completing this study. So there's a lot of different reasons that this study adds value to the district alone from the information and the informed capital planning and decision making. But NYSERDA is increasing voucher money and allowing other certain exceptions for people that have done the plan, shown that they went through the steps to be informed about this. There was federal tax incentives on the bus side as well. Right now, the federal tax incentive, there is still one available for the chargers, but it expires in June 2026. And again, that would pay for about 30% of the physical charger cost. In my next slide, I believe it's the next slide, I'm going to go over the economics. That is not included in the economics. Schedule. Essentially, this highlights any typical project and the fact that from start of a project to getting a project built and operated, you're looking at a couple of years here. Minimum just based on lead times of certain electrical infrastructure, switchgear, transformers. It's not, I call it, and it's here tomorrow. Okay, so this can be hard to read, but this essentially is an economics model which highlights the bus costs, charging infrastructure costs, utility costs, and all the incentives that are applicable. So to not go through each number, I think the numbers that we should, let's see this one. What's the last number? Yeah, exactly. So, okay, we got a couple numbers to highlight here. We got phase 1, let's start there. That's 6 buses and 6 chargers. Okay, phase 1, you go down to $4.6 million, that's cost to district. After incentives, it's $2.7 million, cost to district. Phase 1, 6 buses, 6 chargers. For 6 buses, business as usual, it costs $710,000. Okay, that is huge. Just buying diesel buses. Well, you would buy diesel buses, that's your buses in spot. So that's one comparison right there. As we go to the next phase again, so again, one of the higher points that's not incentivized right now, which does drive a lot of the, poor comparison in my point, is the fire protection, because the state will not incentivize this yet, although we feel it's very important. So if you were to look at it without the fire protection, again, you'd be at about $1 million to $700,000. That's the direct one-for-one replacement comparison on making this transition with incentive money versus business as usual. Go into phase 2, we'll do another comparison there. The business as usual is $500,000. The electric buses for 4 buses and 4 chargers is $580,000. Comparison starts to get very close to each other. And what I'll highlight here is right now the NYSERDA grants and incentives will only pay for the first 10 buses. So after those 10 buses, you no longer get that bus voucher, which is about $200,000 per bus. So you can see after phase 2A, I broke it out into 2A and 2B, the comparisons are worse, right? Those first 10 buses, the comparison of business as usual versus making the transition are pretty close. And as you go out, that comparison gets further away. So again, highlighting a couple numbers here is to get to 2B. Business as usual for 2 buses and 1 charger is $256,000 compared to $695,000. So if we go back a couple, so phase 1 is right here. So it's 2027 to 2029. They're spread out over years. And it's the idea of we went through cross-procurement of when they would plan to procure buses with an understanding that it has to be transitioned by 2035.
How do you come out with bus prices? So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're basing the fusion
years of the electric buses based on the current price. The likelihood and what the state is thinking is that once the mass production, the prices will come down, and that's why the vouchers somewhat disappear in years 3, 4, and 5. So when you look at this additionally, it is, again, over 3 years, that this presentation is based on if nothing changes with the current regulation and the current law. There's still so many variables out there. We're talking to upstate school districts where it's not in Jericho, they're traveling like 100 miles just for regular buses, and the winters are obviously significantly colder. Our field trips, we go to Rochester, we go
I
upstate.
understand this is sort of, I just wanted to know that, so
Yep.
they're just sort of using status quo.
They're using status quo pricing.
It is,
We're not
available OGS
assuming
price.
mass production.
Correct. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So again, back here, it's just a comparison again. This is available and provided to Mr. Manuel, but it is a pretty detailed comparison that doesn't just focus on infrastructure, doesn't just focus on buses, doesn't just focus on incentives. It is the combination of all of them. Again, end cost, if you had no incentives to make this transition, is about $10 million. With incentives, it's about $6.5 million.
Not including fire or including fire?
Including fire protection.
You're saying $6.5 million as of today, we can have 20 electric buses.
Correct.
Okay.
So, and business as usual, by the way, would be about 2.3 if you were to replace the 20 buses by 2035. 19 chargers. 19 chargers, 20 buses. And that's really what's left of the presentation. Again, I'll highlight here what would happen next if the district was prepared to do that. Would be to go forward with a formal design phase and move into, licensed engineers putting together really, really detailed analysis and step up from this concept plan of what that would look like in more detailed pricing, and et cetera. That is dependent on what you want to do. I do not have a price
That's not
available.
included in this 6.5.
That is not in that 6.5. Actually, there is. There is 6% A&E fees included in those numbers. I apologize. It's in the report as well, the cost estimate. That's the presentation. So I appreciate the time. Thank you very much for letting me present.
I just want to take an opportunity to thank Director of Facilities Michael Hahn, Director of Transportation Estelle Stowe. A lot of involvement in the walkthroughs and details and getting the information to Wendell. So thank you both for all the work you did.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the time, guys.
This is similar cost for other districts. Absent the thing, you necessarily have 2.75.
We want to look at the bus counts a lot, right? So you have 20 buses, another district has 60 buses. That's a completely different thing.
I would say on a variable, on a per bus basis, there's nothing.
Well, there is, based on our infrastructure, the amount of conduit we're running, the size switch gear we need, the overall electrical impact, stuff like that does dictate the size of the equipment that goes with pricing. But yes, that's probably a rough guide.
There were priority districts.
Right, there's other districts that get additional. No problem. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You have a microphone there? I guess the microphone there. You can't call your first meeting, so first of all, you're doing council. I know. No, I'm fine. Text,
I'm getting text that people can't hear us because of the fans. We apologize, there was a mechanical issue today, so we needed some fans. Maybe we'll try shutting one off and see if we all die of heat exhaustion.
we'll be fine.
Hopefully anyone who's still at home watching can handle us.
think the ones behind you getting picked up in the microphones.
Really? Thank you very much. Before we get on to the opportunity to public be heard, as part of the superintendent's report, should come as no surprise, Mr. Cohn, could you please give us, Mr. Superintendent, could Mr. Cohn please give us a quick update on residency recertification?
Happy to report that we are 100% verified with all of our families in the district as of this week.
Perfect, thank you very much. We are, as always will be this year, have the pleasure of having our student board member, ex officio member here. Is there anything you can report about the first couple of weeks of school? Something that's working really well, something that's working really poorly? Are the boards angry? Are they happy? What is going on?
Yeah, I think I want to talk a little bit about the cell phone thing. I think that it took a little bit of time getting used to, but all the students are really enjoying the time to actually get to know teachers and other students. Or simultaneously being able to focus on the topics a little bit more. I know that there was like a little bit of concern regarding the safety of our students, but I think Jericho does such a good job of ensuring that we are safe within our learning environment, that there's not really a need to be that concerned.
That is the best student update we've had.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We will now move along. We are up to the opportunity, unless any board members have any questions for the superintendent. We are now up to the opportunity for the public to be heard. If you would like to make a comment or ask a question, please approach the microphone. Tell us your name, and if you are representing a specific group, your affiliation. If you would like your statement to be included in our board minutes, you must hand a written copy to our district clerk, Victor Manuel, before leaving tonight. Before we get to that, and before we open up to the mass crowd here who has questions, I want to announce a change to the board practice regarding emails that are sent to the board. If you attend in person, we are excited to listen and have our entire community listen to your comments. However, we will no longer publicly read email comments. Any email comments can still be included in the meeting minutes if explicitly requested. And I can assure you that if you send the board emails, we will read them, we will just not be reading them publicly. If you want to read them publicly, come and see us in person. You should send, and as I said, continue to send any questions to the board, you will get a response. As in the past, any of those emails, whether comments or questions, can be sent to boe@jerichoschools.org, or, more importantly for questions, boequestions@jerichoschools.org. Rest assured, everyone out listening, despite this revision, we remain extremely committed to transparency and will always be as open as possible to public comment and as responsive as possible to questions from the community. With that, I open it up for the opportunity for the public to be heard. The public is lacking this evening, so we will, absent, going once, going twice, 3 times. We are good on public comment. Thank you very much. Prachi, you had something? Moving on to new business. Okay, this is a long one, I apologize. I will read very quickly. ROC Data Security and Privacy Resolution. Whereas 4 BOCES, I'm not naming them, have collaborated and entered into an Article 5 General Municipal Law intermunicipal arrangement for the purpose of improving vendor management and data security and privacy practices for school districts and/or BOCES statewide, known as the RIC-1 Risk Operations Center. Whereas the BOE of the Jericho UFSD, through its affiliation with a locally based regional information center, participates with the ROC and desires for the 25-26 fiscal year to authorize the ROC to enter into data privacy agreements and related exhibits with vendors and third-party contractors that include the requirements of and compliance with New York State Ed Law 2D and Part 121 regulatory related to student personally identifiable information and certain teacher and principal APPR data. Whereas the ROC also partners with NYSCD, the Access for Learning Student Data Privacy Consortium, and the Education Cooperative to negotiate and approve Ed Law 2D compliant DPAs. Whereas the DPAs are presented to school districts and/or BOCES for final execution and do not require the expenditure of funds beyond those budgets budgeted. And be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Jericho UFSD authorizes the attorneys designated by the ROC to negotiate and approve of DPAs for software and/or technology resources. And be it further resolved, the Jericho UFSD Board of Education grants the ROC and its designated attorneys the authority to negotiate the terms and conditions of DPAs and take such action so as to effectuate the purposes and intent of this resolution. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Jin. Do I have a second? Mrs. Citron, thank you. Before we move on, if there's any discussion, Mr. Manuel, would you like to give us your abbreviated explanation? Oh, Mr. Goodstadt, would you like to give us your abbreviated version of what I just said?
You said it the nicest thing. No, so basically, all the programs that the Jericho School District uses, as well as every school district, they're required to be 2D compliant. There's a lot of them, and there's a lot of school districts that use them, so these BOCES have coordinated the efforts so that one person will be negotiating all these contracts across the entire state that are 2D compliant for the school district to use.
Thank you very much. We are protecting your children's data, I believe is the really short way. Any comments? All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? 4-0, the motion carries. Moving on. Be it resolved, Jericho UFSD Board of Education approves the installation of air conditioning systems into 6 first student buses as per the attached. Do I have a motion? Well, we can't have the question until we have it open. We have to get a motion and then second it and then we'll discuss it. Motion from Mr. Jin, second from Dr. Balachandra. Discussion.
We got an email about it regarding this particular installation. I think you already.
Yeah, so I'll speak for a few moments, if it's okay, Mr. Perlman, and incorporate some of the questions that were asked in the email we received. So, as you know, the district renegotiated with First Student we were forced to do a new 5-year contract. We went back to them probably about 3 times to sharpen their pencil and come back with a proposal that not only met their needs, but met the needs of the district to try to smooth out the increase over a 5-year period, as opposed to getting hit all in 1 or 2 or 3 years. So that was a successful negotiation. Following that, as we all know, it was 100 degrees for a few days in June, and we received, rightfully so, many complaints with some of our buses that did not have, not equipped with air conditioning. It was a total of 18 buses. We had some further negotiations with First Student, and speaking to the presentation tonight, the district and First Student partnered for grant money totaling $2 million, which allowed First Student to purchase 10 electric buses, which haven't arrived yet. They're due to arrive in the spring of 2026. Basically, it was at the cost of what basically a diesel bus would cost with the incentive that we received and the grants we received through NYSERDA. So the 18 buses, the 10 that we're receiving next spring will be air conditioned. So that brings the number from 18 down to 8. Of the 8, First Student was able to promise, which they were successful in their promise, and beginning September, they were able to provide us 2 out of those 8 buses now with air conditioning. So now we're down to 6 buses that do not have air conditioning. So the board asked if we could find out what it would cost to retrofit those buses with air conditioning, not buying new buses, but retrofitting. And the cost is approximately $15,500 per bus for a total cost of about $92,000. So one of the questions was, did we work with First Student and ask them to help us out with some of the costs? And they did. They provided 2 whole buses that were air conditioned this year, which they didn't have to do. As far as if we move forward with this, who would pay for it? There's one authorized vendor to work on Thomas Built buses. All of the buses are Thomas Built brand buses. And I think you heard before, Thomas Built and Bluebird are the two main bus manufacturers for school buses. So Nesco is the only authorized dealer that would work with Thomas Built buses, so that takes care of that question where there is no, they're the sole, basically sole source to work on those types of buses. The next question is, are we paying Nesco or are we paying First Student? So if we pay First Student would then pay Nesco. First Student would get charged sales tax because they are a company and they're not sales tax exempt. And those costs would then be floated back to us at a higher price with First Student. So if we buy it directly from Nesco, we save on the sales tax, which is several $1,000s over the total cost. Next question that I discussed with First Student, even prior to receiving this email, is guaranteeing that those 6 buses that are retrofitted are used only for the Jericho School District. And in fact, that's the only use that those buses will be for the Jericho School District. I think I hit most of the questions. If I missed any, let me know. But again, this was something the board asked me to bring to them, and this is the recommendation, so it's up to the board at this point. Any additional questions, please?
I have a question because that was texted me directly. The question was whether we can have First Student take that portion of the amount because they already have funding contract. Can they pay for it?
They can't. Again, when we were negotiating the long-term contract, we went back to them several times because at the initial onset, a lot of the increases were front-loaded. Front-loaded meaning year 1, year 2, year 3. And we went back to try to smooth it out over the 5-year period, which they agreed to eventually, but it was a pretty significant negotiation going back and forth. So we felt like that they came to the table wanting to negotiate, wanting to keep the Jericho School District contract. And again, when we were talking about the AC buses, the 10 electric buses are coming next spring, again with a partnership grant funded with NYSERDA, and they offered 2 out of the 8 buses that they would switch in September, which they did. So I do feel like they stepped up and did provide some flexibility and covered some of the costs for the district.
Okay, thank you.
My feeling is, Dr. Sundberg, anytime some of your teachers want to borrow Mr. Manuel to teach negotiation with vendors, you should really take advantage of his expertise, whether it's the business law courses, FBLA. This is someone who has done wondrous work for our district, and your teacher should feel free to borrow him with Dr. Kravitz's approval, of course.
It should be known that Mr. Manuel works very closely with the business department as it is, so we're happy to extend that even further.
Perfect. Hello. Yes, all in favor? 4 all against, all abstaining, 4-0, motion carries. Be it resolved that the date of the October 30th, 2025 board meeting is changed to Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. Do I have a motion? Motion. Thank you, Mr. Jin. Do I have a second? Ms. Dr. Balachandar.
I'm sorry, did you take all 3 of them at once?
No, I'm only doing the change of date of the board meeting. Sorry.
Yeah.
All in favor of changing the date of the board meeting to Wednesday, October 29th? All opposed? All abstentions? 4-0, that carries. Which now brings us to the schedules. I would think you would say, Mr. Manuel, we're going to take P118 and P119, 2 late transportation requests, one to St. Mary's, one's to Trinity Lutheran, according to what is in our board packet. Do I have a motion on P118? Just the first 2, P118 and P119. Thank you, Dr. Balachandar. Do I have a second? Second. Someone have a second. Mr. Jin. Any discussion? If not, we can look at the notes. We can see that these P118 and P119 did not meet the deadlines required and would equate to substantial costs to the district, approximately $4,000 per month per each. So consistent with what we have done in the past, you know, and I think this is all in the public package, that it was recommended not to move forward with that, but obviously the board has the authority to do whatever they want.
We recommend not approving.
All in favor of approving P118 and P119? All against? Thank you, Mrs. Citron. Okay, so we want to approve the resolution denying 118 and 119. Got it. I apologize. Is that in here? Oh, I'm sorry. So be it resolved that the request for transportation for one student to attend the following school be disapproved based on the attached letter from the transportation supervisor. That is one student in St. Mary's. And then be it resolved that the request for transportation for one student to attend the following school be disapproved based on the attached letter from the transportation supervisor. That's one student to Trinity Lutheran. Okay, so now that we did that, just for the formality purpose, can I get a motion on that? Motion for Mr. Jin. A motion to second on those two resolutions. Thank you, Dr. Balachandra. We've sort of had the discussion. Yeah, no, I'm going to do that because you corrected me. That's why I'm just running through so we do everything by the book. All in favor of the resolution disapproving of those two schedules? All against? All abstaining? Perfect. So those two resolutions carry, denying those two late transportation requests, which brings us to Schedule P120. Be it resolved that the request for transportation for one student to attend the following school be approved based on the attached recommendation from the transportation supervisor. That is one student to Friends Academy. Do I have a motion? Mr. Jin, thank you. Second, Mr. Citron, thank you. As anyone can see here, this is an existing route and there is no additional cost to the district, which I believe is the basis for the transportation supervisor's recommendation. Does anyone have any other comments, questions, concerns? All in favor? All against? Abstentions? Perfect. We are carried there 4-0. Thank you. Does any board member, administration, or Cynthia have any final comments before we move to, no? She wants to sing? Is she a singer? Would you like to sing, Mr. Cohn? Is that your hint? Kenny wants to sing? Does any of the administration, anyone who's here want to sing? Okay, that's excellent. No one wants to sing. Before we adjourn, we look forward to seeing many of you at our next meeting on Thursday, September 25th. As all business on the agenda for tonight's meeting is complete, do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Citron, thank you. Second, Mr. Jin. All in favor? 4-0. No abstentions, no no's. Perfect. We are all good. Have a great night, everybody.